Now, I am one man. I hold one seat in one legislature. I recognize that gives me a platform, that gives me privilege, and that gives me some power. And it gives me an enormous responsibility that I and my colleagues cannot shirk away from. My commitment to you is that for our part, me and my colleagues, we will be a better opposition, and we will fight to build a better government.
So last year, when we saw the murder of George Floyd, it became clear pretty quickly that this was something that deeply resonated with people. I mean, let's be clear, we've seen far too many black men die at the hands of police over the years. But this time, that video, that 9 minutes of a police officer kneeling on his neck, that hit a lot of people hard. So we saw the protests in Calgary, and then we had the event come here to Edmonton, and I was invited to speak at that, 15,000 people there. And I knew we couldn't just go there and offer a lot of words, we had to put something on the table. We started to sit down and develop a core set of policies. The consultation process that we set up was an incredible opportunity. Having something substantive that we actually put on the table, not asking community to do the work, but asking community to tell us what we got right, what we got wrong, and what we need to change.
I really enjoyed the consultation. It was a great conversation. There were tons of people who attended, and it was a very long day, but there was so much to be said. There were great conversations. There were folks who work in schools, folks who work in NGOs, folks who are part of the community at large.
It was a very thorough consultation. I think we were able to attract way more Albertans from diverse backgrounds, and we were able to talk to them on issues that matter to them. Healthcare, education system, public safety, services, opportunities, democratic participation.
The consultation process was inspirational. Hearing everybody's perspectives from so many different Albertans about what it means to be part of inclusive society was an exercise in joy. I actually found that hearing people talk about the work they want to do, their commitment to anti-racism, filled me with joy and filled all the people who participated with joy.
Right now we need to be focusing on dispelling myths about other people based on their ethnicity and their religion, and this will help us be more unified.
I feel it is my obligation as an elected official, and indeed as a black man in this position, to use the position and the opportunities I have to fight for and make sure we implement these changes.
Anti-racism education, to me, looks like kids feeling empowered to speak up and have their voices heard. When there is injustice, when somebody's being racialized and treated in a racist fashion, that students, that staff, that the community comes together and stops what's happening immediately, creates a safe environment to make sure that students understand where their hurtful and hateful language comes from, that it's not acceptable in our schools.
Anti-racism in healthcare is incredibly important for two things. One, the experience people have as patients in the healthcare system. For racialized communities, we see from the data that we do have, and we see there are disproportional effects. Secondly, for people that practice medicine. For black frontline healthcare workers, the challenges they face from education into practice, systemic bias, discrimination, stories we hear, like the doctor in Grand Prairie who had another surgeon who tied a noose and left it on the door of the surgery where he worked. Those are things we need to change.
It's important to recognize that racism can be a workplace safety issue. When you think about a workplace, bullying and harassment and discrimination should not be tolerated or allowed. But so far, this government has done very little to support workplaces, to support employers in addressing issues of racism in their own shops. We need to make sure that there's tools to address that, and we need to make sure that racism is stamped out everywhere, particularly in workplaces where there's a power differential, where a worker might not feel like they have the power to be able to speak up.
We need to make some real and substantive changes through the power that we have in this legislation. The motion that all MLAs supported recently to ban hate symbols in the province of Alberta. What a powerful message of support that would be to racialized communities in this province. There are steps we could take to strengthen hate crime legislation. There's steps we could take to ensure we are collecting race-based disaggregated data on every aspect of the government's work, with the support and the governance from the community, to make sure that we can truly make sure that the services that the government provides, the things that it invests in, are truly being accessible and equal for all Albertans. I've seen so much mobilization in the community. I see so many amazing young leaders stepping up from racialized communities who are intent on making sure that we see change, that we do things differently, that they are not going to be silent and they will not be overlooked. That makes me feel like we've got a lot of hope.
Anti-racism policy is important for Alberta, and it's important for any jurisdiction around the globe. So I'm glad the Alberta NDP, first time in Alberta's history, took on this action and consulted thousands of organizations and individuals, and have developed and drafted comprehensive policy, anti-racist policy, to discuss in this coming convention, and hopefully that will be adopted by the party.
It was beyond heartbreaking to see a young man murdered like that on the streets. And I think at the same time, also it was nice to see people stepping up to call out that discrimination.
Anti-racism means to me that it's about fighting back against the status quo and not just being silent when we see injustice, but actually fighting back against racism and creating a more just world.
Anti-racism to me means that all Albertans can feel comfortable here in the province of Alberta, knowing that they will be respected and treated with dignity.
Anti-racism means changing hearts and minds. It means being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It means all taking responsibility and ownership for making our society more inclusive and more tolerant, and celebrating our diversity and strength.
I think a fair society needs to include everyone, and we do know that Alberta is a diverse province that includes people from many different color, creed, faith, and backgrounds. And I believe that everyone should have the same opportunity, equal opportunity to be successful in this province.
Because let's be clear, racism is a weed, and its roots run deep. We cannot uproot it without disturbing the ground that it's growing in. And although that will be uncomfortable, that will be difficult, that will be painstaking work, we can and we must chart a better future. So I promise you, we will listen, we will collaborate, and we will work with you to make change happen.